Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Philip McMillan, and my advocacy around COVID is raising awareness around autoimmunity in the disease. This is what I've been saying from early 2020 that severe COVID is a viral mediated autoimmune disease. And as a result, you have to be careful with how you stimulate the immune system. That has always been my position. And my concerns have largely been proven correct over the past few years. So I continue to raise awareness of this point, and most critically, I am looking out for longer term complications around autoimmunity. That's my COVID advocacy. And the reality is, I can't not speak about it because it is so important. Other people who don't understand the science may be okay with it. But sadly, I've been given a responsibility almost to continue to speak about this because it has such significance. Now, over the past few weeks and months, I've been coming across a number of people who have been targeted by the system for speaking out, and they have lost a lot. Dr. Shetty, who I speak to regularly, is still being targeted by his regulatory body. Just recently, we spoke about Professor Kolderoff at Harvard, who lost his job. And today, I want to talk about another one. This is a Dr. Kaur from Canada in Ontario, who didn't lose her job, but she faced huge costs related to legally defending herself and is struggling to be able to do that. We are at a point where the truth is that without the support of the public, it is no wonder that so many people would choose to stay silent at this point. Because what is the relevance of giving up everything for a public who doesn't appreciate it? That's how it can come across. And so it's very important to support. Now, I have never as yet asked for any kind of support with regards to, say, Macmillan research. I've done this through education. I've shared courses, people can pay for it, but it's really small, intangible stuff that we're building towards. But I've realized that critically, I have to try and do better with that because there are so many people who have stood up for science and who are targeted and don't have the resources to be able to fight back or are left in a much worse position than if they had stayed silent. The world needs people to stand up, but you can't have it similar to what happened with this Boeing whistleblower. He has lost his life over standing up for something that he was concerned about. This is not acceptable in the current world. And if it is acceptable to you, I guarantee you that you will suffer that kind of consequence in years to come because it will become abused. So, I want to start off this bit of the support for these advocates by highlighting the case here with regards to Dr. Kaur, Cargill from Ontario. So, this was an article. This was from the Ontario from the National Post, and in this post here, they were highlighting that this was about October 2023, and the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons had ended its quest to silence the anti-lockdown pediatrician. So it seems that at that point, they backed off trying to take away her license. That's what they intended to do at the time. And they kindly shared the letter. This was the letter that was shared by the Ontario Physicians and Surgeons and Disciplinary Tribunal. And they highlighted here, and this was in September 2023, that they had stepped back with regards to trying to withdraw what trying to take away her license. The problem is that she would have put together a huge legal bill in preparation for that disciplinary tribunal. And them pulling back may seem as though, yes, she didn't lose her license, but she still has to pay that legal bill. That's the reality. And so it caught my attention when I saw Professor Professor Bhattacharya, who was also somebody who had spoken out about the lockdowns. I don't think he lost his job, but he was interviewing her, and I thought it's worthwhile listening to what she says. And please, there is a link in the description. Please think about trying to support her. So here is what that short bit said, and you can hear her voice here.
How much, where do you stand now?
I've now been ordered to pay nearly $300,000 in the cost order. And I have mere weeks to pay. So my deadline is at the end of March. And it's $300,000 that I don't have after nearly 4 years of being entangled in multiple legal battles, trying to advocate for my patients, trying to advocate for Canadians, and to try to advocate for myself. And so it's now looking quite grim.
So what happens then? I mean, if you can't pay the order, you probably have to declare bankruptcy, I would think. What will that do to your ability to practice medicine? What will that do to your ability to care for your patients?
It's all very daunting right now, and I never thought that this would be the cost of speaking truth to power, of being compelled to speak my conscience, being compelled to speak against the harms that I knew were going to happen against the people within the very communities that I practice within the developing world, where I initially was born and still have very deep roots too. And everything that I warned about in 2020, which was at that time, which I cited, was based on peer-reviewed evidence, has now come to pass. And it's been absolutely heart-wrenching and devastating watching the carnage unfold, and being helpless, right? Because it was all completely preventable, and it was known in 2020, right? But so now the harms are actually being realized, and they're being tallied, and slowly they're now being acknowledged. But it seems like advocating for the truth and advocating for that scientific evidence to come forward has come at a huge cost.
The costs of the legal bills you face, essentially these punitive legal bills because of your advocacy against the lockdowns.
Yeah. So there's a Give, Send, Go public campaign that's been started to help to fund my legal fund to help to offset all these costs.
Well, I'll be donating because I think I view you as a hero. I mean, what you've done has been come at tremendous personal costs. I know from our conversations during the pandemic, but you have made an enormous difference in the lives of so many people by advocating for sane policy, for advocating for policy that takes account of the well-being of the poorest members of society, and I'm grateful to you for that. So.
Yeah, so we're all grateful for that, but sadly, it takes more than just feeling gratitude to help somebody through that kind of difficulty. Can you imagine her waking up in the morning worrying about those bills and saying, I wish I hadn't done it. I wish I had remained silent like everybody else. I'd have kept my job. I'd be okay. I'd be able to support my family. If that's the outcome that comes out of these things, then the world is in serious trouble. The world needs advocates, needs people willing to speak out. And one of them that I know did a tremendous bit of work was the whistleblower who highlighted the embalmers or the clots that were occurring in living people. That video has now seen almost 240,000 views. A lot of people have looked at the full video, and the link is in the description below if you want to see it as well. Identity is kept hidden. But one of the points is that because he wouldn't come forward and declare who he was, it makes it more difficult to corroborate what it is that he is saying. But I recognize the truth is that it could come at the loss of his job. the loss of his livelihood. How is that worth it? That's the problem. We don't have the ability to support the people who may be penalized by acting in the interest of the general public. There's no whistleblower fund. There's no way to make sure that even if they lose a lot, they're compensated. That's not a fair deal. And something has to change. The truth is that that change is not going to happen through the governments because, as far as they're concerned, those advocates are acting against them. I want you to think carefully because sometimes people may call the fact that funds are needed for people who are advocating, they may criticize that, not realizing that it comes at a cost. On the other side, they're quite happy for big industry to make huge profits at the expense of the public. Listen to what Marjorie Green had to say in this case, and you make up your own mind as to the difference.
Who said that vaccines were safe and effective. The government paid Pfizer and Moderna in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Pfizer received $15.27 billion. Moderna received $9.99 billion. Pfizer, amazingly, in 2022, got a 23% increase. But in 2021, they doubled their income at a 95% increase in revenue. That's absolutely impressive thanks to the American people. But it was Moderna's whose numbers were astounding. Moderna increased their revenue in 2020, had a 1,238% increase in revenue. In 2021, they got a 2,200% increase in revenue. It's quite impressive, though, that Pfizer worldwide went from at $190 billion right there towards the beginning of 2021 and skyrocketed at the end of 2021 to $330 billion worldwide. That's quite impressive thanks to the American taxpayer and thanks to the CDC director, Dr. Walensky, who said that vaccines were safe and effective. The government.
So, yes, I think that she makes it very clear. Whatever you think about her as a COVID advocate, she really does hammer it home. And I think this is the point. It's not a fair challenge. The people who are challenging have nowhere near the resources that industry and government has to take them down. As I said, when you look at the case of Dr. Kaur, even though she didn't lose her position, she still has over 300,000 pounds, 1,000 Canadian dollars to pay for legal bills. It's not fair, but it is what it is. Let me tell you something as we move towards a new phase of medicine and health. If you don't support the people who are trying to fight for you, you will end up with only the people who are fighting for clearly other interests outside of the interests of the public. That's a choice that everybody has to make. And I hope that in years to come, it will be a place where we are safe to speak out, where people don't have to sacrifice so much for telling the truth and challenging science. There's still a lot to come with regards to the clots. And I'll tell you this final point. Nobody wants to talk about this because it is so serious. These clots need to be investigated, but the cost of investigating it for people's jobs, for their livelihoods, is so high that nobody wants to touch it. It's not in the interest of the population for us not to understand the science around why it's occurring, who it's occurring in, how frequently, what are the associations. At the moment, if you, the public, are happy with that, then the consequences will come in time. But that will be a choice that everybody has made. Let's see if we can make a better future for health, for children, for grandchildren, by supporting those who need it, even before they should have to ask. Thank you very much.